So I thought just as a first question, maybe Lily, if you wanted to share a little bit about your journey with an IRD and how you've come to think and reflect on your condition.
Thank you, Ayton. As Ayton mentioned, I was diagnosed with an IRD when I was in my late 20s. Now, it shouldn't have come as a surprise to me because as a kid, I just thought I was clumsy. And I thought that I was just scared of the dark. So all the signs and symptoms were there. And I was short-sighted, and I just thought that was how life was going to be. And there were many poles and many things that I ran into and have lots of scars from them as well. But in my late 20s, I was diagnosed with RP, and it came from my brother also, and we both found out at a similar time that we had an IRD. Now, at that stage, it was quite eye-opening, and I didn't really know very much about anything like that at all. But I did learn that, it was inherited. So we had to look into our family history, but we had no family history. I learnt that it was all about the retina, and I knew nothing about what a retina did. All I knew was that I was short-sighted and I needed some glasses. And I also found out that it was a disease and it was going to be progressive. So at that stage, I was still driving. I was making fine jewellery, doing fine art, and it's 30 years later, and I now have a guide dog, and I have had to adapt and to move on as I go along. But the most important thing, and it sort of resonates with what I've heard today, is that you need to be open to the possibilities. You need to be open to where you are. You need to make the choice, as Ben was just saying. You need to not worry about asking the silly questions. And that's why I've ended up being here today. And I feel very fortunate that there is a great community to support me, including my family, my very close family. And I think it's always the best thing to do is to open yourself to those opportunities and just to move forward and always believe in hope, which is what I've gained from today as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Lily. And I suppose, Lauren, I'd love to hear about how stories like Liliana's or Harrison's inform the way that you approach your work.
Yeah, no, and I just wanted to, I guess, to say thank you again for everyone sharing their stories so beautifully. Ben, that was an amazing talk. Thank you so much. I think for me, I guess sharing, publicly as well. So my brother was blind as well. So my older brother had a brain injury at birth, meant he lost his vision, and then my younger brother had a lazy eye, and so that was able to be corrected with patching. And so I think I've always had this, let's fix this, and as a very young age. But then growing up, I realized that my brother was awesome, and hearing these stories and hearing how amazing and independent people are is so inspiring. But then also working together as a community to try and address some of these things if we can is also incredibly exciting as a researcher. So I think I just really wanted to say thank you again to everyone in the room. Hearing your stories is so powerful. It keeps us striving to learn more about these conditions and see what we can do to hopefully reduce the impact of them moving forward.
Amazing. And I think as we think about moving forward, I think one of the challenges when it comes to IRDs is the need to constantly adapt until we have these treatments to help either, prevent further loss or to help restore vision. We are needing to really ask people living with these conditions to constantly adapt to their world. I guess, Harry, if you wanted to share any thoughts about how you may have adapted to participate in things that bring you joy or, you've wanted to strive for as your vision has changed.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the strategies I've employed is I have this little phrase of ordinary but extraordinary, and you find these little these people in all sorts of little pockets of society, and often they have no experience of disability in general or vision impairment more specifically, but there's just something about those type of people and they're willing to assist, and they're open-minded and willing to learn and collaborate together to find solutions to age-old participation. I can think of one example of I started going to the local boxing class, and I've in that boxing class at my local gym, it was a partnered class, and initially I probably found it pretty frustrating and difficult because people hold their pads at different heights, they hold them on different angles, they're not necessarily in an even parallel line with each other. One might be slightly up and one might be slightly down, and they're constantly moving where the pads are held in response to the combination that the instructor calls out. So it was pretty difficult, but after some practice and patience on behalf of me and my friend, my peer at the time, who I didn't really know, we just got in the groove, and I learnt the kinesthetic sense, and now we can both smash it out and do well. And it's quite a bunch of fun and a way to release some stress after the day. So I think, where do you find them? Sometimes they just pop up, and sometimes they just where you least expect them. But those type of people can really be a really big enabler or influencer.
Right. I think having the support people is such a critical, is so important for the vision impaired community. I wondered, Debbie, if you could add on some more tangible things that family members, community members, research clinicians, people who are working on connecting with the vision impaired community, how can we be better to support people with an IRD?
I think it's all about listening. I think it's because we know, and we've talked about it today, that we're all going through, people with IRD have their own personal journey. There are different stages, different symptoms of varying degrees. So I think the important key to remember is to ask and really listen to their response. Let them have a chance to tell you actually what they need, what their goal is. Don't sort of assume that they know, or don't even filter the information that you think might be useful for them, right? Thinking, oh, okay, well, this doesn't apply to them because I don't think this would fit what they might need. But how would you know until you actually listen and inquire deeply and understand what they're actually going through? So I think listening is the key. So then we can work together to really provide that person-centered care and really address their needs and help them meet their goals so that it's meaningful and relevant to them at that particular time, because it's always going to change, right? So yeah, so really listen is what I would say.
Great. And I think that requires a certain amount of ability for that person to advocate for themselves and to communicate what their needs might be. I think it can be a challenge sometimes to really verbalize what they may need in that particular time, but also that may change over time. I wonder, Lily, if you wanted to share a little bit about how you've navigated communicating with others and really educating and advocating for the IRD community as well as yourself individually.
I think it's sometimes it's really hard to advocate for yourself. Sometimes it's much easier to advocate for somebody else. I work in education, and I'm becoming more and more aware that there needs to be advocacy for our students as well as myself. But as a student myself, when I was at school, I didn't advocate for myself at all. I just sat at the back of the class and didn't say anything and went along. And now I am a very, very passionate about making sure that those students know that they've got the support in their schools that they need. It is tricky because, as Deb just mentioned before, it's about asking people what they need. And sometimes if that question is not asked, then the information doesn't get through. And there's a lot of assumptions that are made. And I'm actually experiencing it a little bit myself with work and some of the things that I'm involved with, is that the assumptions are wrong or the questions haven't been asked and there hasn't been the support there. So to be an advocate for yourself is actually not be the victim, be the person that's out there that is going to make strength of what they're doing and know that you have that strength to keep going, and to make others aware of what you need and ask. just ask what you need, and encourage people to ask you what you need as well. It's very important, because communication is the key, and unless you can communicate what you need, then people won't know what you need, and that's a very tricky thing to do. And sometimes you don't want to be that person that's going to be putting themselves out there and always pointing things out that you might need, but it's very important, because that's how we live our best lives, and that's how we get the best support.
Amazing, thank you. And I think that lived experience is so critical as we look at the research, really understanding what matters to people with lived experience, what their needs are, what questions they might have, can really help us ensure that we're delivering meaningful research to the community that will actually have outcomes and impact that will matter to them. I think looking broadly to the future of retinal disease care, I wondered, Lauren, if you could comment on what gives you hope.
Yeah, I think actually just tying back into that, Ayton led a project a little while ago looking at the top 10 priorities for people that are living with inherited retinal diseases, and what, you know, people in the community want to see in research, and that's now really helping all of the researchers drive the work that they do. So I think that's actually probably what I'm most excited about. I feel like we have an amazing community, and, you know, we're hearing directly from people about what they want to see researched and what they want to see developed, and I think that's actually really exciting. The other thing that gives me chills a little bit is every year when I go to the scientific conferences, the inherited retinal disease sessions just get bigger and bigger and bigger, you know, and we now have conferences that are just for inherited retinal diseases and conferences that are just for, you know, maybe gene therapy. It's, you know, a lot of work is going into this space, and I just love seeing that, you know, the community are all behind it and we're all pushing for the same goals.
Great. And I think it is really great that we've got so much research to look into treatments as well as services and support available to live well now. Harry, I wondered if you could comment on how you might navigate that fine balance between staying hopeful or being open to treatment options in your lifetime, whilst also living well in the moment now with your condition.
Yeah, thanks, Eden. Well, I think broadly, overall, it's one that requires consistent effort and consciousness to balance those things, because I think it's natural to probably feel that, you know, vision restoration in the future would benefit you, and to look for that, I guess, just by process and the natural evolutions approach, that we have vision and legs and all sorts of different bodily functions for a reason, because they help us, you know, navigate and contend with life. And at the same time, I guess, you know, think on, well, how can you make it better in the moment, and what else can you do? I guess asking yourself those kind of questions, and finding those other people, like I said, those ordinary but extraordinary people who can help you along the way. And I think too, it's a bit about maybe seeing it as a continuum, I guess, optimism at one end and pessimism at another, and realism's in the middle, and acknowledging and appreciating that both can coexist together. I think sometimes there's a narrative in the, historically at least, that if you're accepting, you're totally comfortable and content and not looking for a change, but maybe redefining what is the definition of acceptance, that, you know, it's not easy and I wish it was different, but this is what I've got, and I'm going to play these cards the best that you can play them.
Yeah, I think that idea of how we define acceptance is likely very different with each person with inherited retinal disease you speak to. Lily, did you want to comment a little bit on how you have navigated that balance between staying hopeful for treatments, whether that might have changed over time, and how you can also live well in the moment whilst having that desire potentially for treatments?
Yes, I was just thinking, I was having a chat with my brother, and he actually said, you know, when we were first both diagnosed, there was no treatment. It didn't look like there was going to be a treatment. And then as we went along, a few years later, they said, well, in about 10 years, there'll be treatment. And that was probably 30 years ago. And every 10 years, yes, in about 10 years, there might be some kind of treatment for it. It's not something that I've always put my hat on with, expecting that there was going to be some magic cure. And I realised that you just have to adapt and you go along, but there's always been hope, and there still is that hope. And I think that's what we need to catch on to and realise that, yes, okay, it might not be in our lifetime, my brother's lifetime, the other community here's lifetime, but there is hope that there is something going forward. And just listening to what is happening today with the research that has been outlined today with the gene therapy and the stem cell therapy, that hope has just, it's 1,000 times more than it was yesterday. And just listening to the work that is being done by the researchers here and their passion about it, that hope's really important to hold on to. Yes, there might not be an actual time that I know that there will be something that, and it may not help me, but the generations that follow me, there's that hope that it will be something that we can navigate. And so I'm very, very excited that we are in a time where there is all of this research going on, there is support for it, and I just applaud everybody who's involved in it.
Thank you so much. It sounds like from you and Harry, this idea of you can maintain hope, not just for you, but for the whole community, whilst also having a level of acceptance of your condition and being able to live well now, still enjoy the things that you're doing without necessarily holding on to this idea that you may benefit from a treatment in the next 10 years potentially or so. I think one of the key challenges around maintaining that realistic hope is ensuring that people are well informed with evidence-based information. Harry, I wonder if I could go back to you and ask, is staying informed about IRD research important to you? Like, why is it important for you to come to these events and to learn and to understand about research developments? Why does that matter for you?
Well, I think it probably matters to me because, I guess it's a passion and a desire that one day, hopefully, there will be opportunities, for site restoration to make life easier. And I guess you don't really know where connections will come from. It was 18 months ago when I attended the Sydney IRD Day, and I crossed paths with Ayton, and I guess communication and friendship grew from there, and that was as organic as it was. So that's kind of how I fitted in today's picture to be asked to be co-MC along with Ayton, was simply that meeting there. So you don't really know what will transpire and what connection you will meet. It mightn't be the connection that you think of, but it could have a big impact, or could be really useful for you down the track. And I find too, reflecting over all of the years of these kind of stories, the medical mysteries can be involved and complicated, like we heard today about, what's involved in stem cell and gene therapy, etc. And sometimes coming to events today, clarify information or fill in the missing piece, and then you go away and think about what you've heard today, and that arises to a new set of questions. Oh, well, how does I learned this on this time, and I learned that 2 years ago. How do they merge together? I'm still not quite sure about that. So I guess it clarifies gaps in knowledge and brings new questions. And I think both of those together allow you to kind of ask better questions going forward and find a solution that will work for you.
Wonderful, thank you. I think there is a lot of information out there at the moment, and it can be quite challenging to navigate all of this stuff. Is it relevant for me? Is it relevant for my condition? Is this even like reliable information, or is this some kind of made up information coming from, someone's backyard? Lauren, would you be able to comment on like your thoughts on people using platforms like ChatGPT or Google AI summaries to get their medical information?
How many hours do you have? So I actually played around with ChatGPT the other day. I'm like, I'd be interested to see what happens if I type in, what trials are going around. It makes up a lot of things. So yeah, I think in the future we might get to the point where we have some tools like that are useful. But at the moment, I would say very much finding a trusted, healthcare healthcare professional or a trusted person that is on top of the research that's happening. And obviously I'm going to, plug again the importance of registry. So getting yourself onto a registry so you are kept up to date with the research. Things like newsletters from Retina Australia, Vision Australia Communications, these are all trusted sources. And I would definitely say go there first, because unfortunately ChatGPT will just make up a whole lot of things, and it's all moving very quickly. So, trying to find people that you trust to keep you updated with the research is the best way to do it.
Yep, great, thank you. And Lily, did you want to share a little bit about maybe some strategies or ways you've been able to access further information or research that's happening in the field without necessarily feeling overwhelmed or misled with what's out there?
I'm not a very good reader of research papers, but I do like to keep up to date. And I think it's actually knowing the avenues that can give you the right information. So yes, I did sign up for the Retina Australia newsletter, and I've learnt a lot from that. I try and keep on top of current research that's going, but it's through conversation as well. And it's talking to like-minded people, whether they're allied health professionals, whether they're in the ophthalmology field, or whether or not there are other people with lived experience as well. And I think the more information you have, the better informed you are, which seems, a no-brainer, but unless you actually search to find that relevant source of truth information, the more you have, then the better you are to make those decisions. And if there are decisions that need to be made, to have that information behind you is really relevant. But it is harder these days to work out where to go to get the information, because there's just a plethora of information out there, and sometimes it's hard to work out, well, is this reputable, is this evidence-based, but that's where the basis should be. It's that information from reputable sources that that have evidence-based, and then you make your own decisions from there, but also using that information and then talking to people and getting their opinions and finding out what their opinions. They might have read the same research paper as well and have a completely different opinion about it and where it should go. So I think it's really important to keep those conversations going as well, to get a well-rounded idea.
Wonderful, thanks Liliana. And Debbie, there's a lot of information about treatments and research in that space, but there's also a lot of information and support services available out there. Even Vision Australia has a lot of support services, which is great. And that can be overwhelming for someone coming into this field. Or do I touch base with every single service available? Do you have any suggestions or strategies about how to navigate that? If someone needs to come in and try to access some services as a first point, what should they do?
Just refer yourself or get someone to refer you, like your health professional. And then what happens is we have what we call senior service providers that will make that phone call. So schedule an appointment with you to talk through these needs that you might have or your goals that you want to achieve. And our senior service providers are well-versed, I guess, that's why we've called them senior service providers, on sort of and how to ask the questions. They know how to ask the questions, because I think we talked about before, sometimes you might not know what question to ask because you might not know what services is available or what strategies people can give you. So I think, as Liliana has said, I think just be brave to just put it out there. No question is silly, as Ben has already spoken about. And then let us help you do the rest, I guess. Then that's when we can then think about the breadth of our services and offer and let you know what sort of support services are out there. And then it's a matter of you thinking, all right, I think I'm ready for this. So we might tell you about our wellbeing services. So then you are informed about that. You may not be ready to, but potentially accept it, but then at least so then you can come back to it at a later point, or we might remind you later on about it, because we understand that it can be quite overwhelming to get all of this, to get all of that information all at once. So what we will usually do is the senior service provider will maybe just discuss your most important goal. So what what is it that you need to address first? Is it learning how to be able to read comfortably? So if that's the case, we'll help you reach that goal first, and then we'll think about the next goal. And we recognize that every patient or every client is different, and we know that sometimes it can take, because you can be so overwhelmed, it can take you reaching your first goal and seeing that, oh wow, I did that. I can now do that with that strategy that I've learnt from Vision Australia. Then that gives you that added maybe push or incentive or encouragement to then share your second goal, right? And
Wonderful.
It could be, all right, now I want to learn how to cook safely in my kitchen. So then it prompts you to then maybe tackle something that you perceive that might be more difficult. And then that's when we can then put that service into place, and then it rolls on, right? So we recognize that it's all different. Some people might be quite comfortable with saying, okay, I want to achieve this. Then we can set that up for you. All right, so we'll do this week. Once you've achieved that goal, we can do that. And so then other patients or clients might want to do all of those goals at the same time, and that can happen too. And that's why I say it's person-centered and it's tailored to that age or stage. So
it's about really each person having a think about what goals do you want to achieve in life, what matters to me, and then reaching out and then trying to work it through their through a list, which is
that's right. So don't put a limit on it, I guess. We can work with you.
Amazing. So I'm just conscious of time, and I know everyone's feeling overwhelmed with information. So we are going to wrap up the panel session, but I thought just to end on a tricky one in one sentence, if you could each share one thing from today that's either given you a sense of hope, or you felt surprised or inspired or resonated with you, that you'll take home, you might mention to someone else or you reflect on later. One sentence.
Oh gosh, that's actually really hard. There's
Yeah.
been
It's like I gave you the questions ahead of time.
I know. And now I'm like, I wish I'd prepared. No, look, I think today, honestly, has been so much. You know, the one big thing is going to be the seagull joke, actually, because I have a 5-year-old, so I'm definitely going to do that. But no, I think the discussion about the fact that we do stop asking questions as we get older, and that is actually a really, really bad thing. I think that really dug deep. So thank you for that, Ben. I'm going to be using that with my kids to get a few laughs tonight.
Thanks. I think for me, it's just refreshing to see the passion and the drive for all the doctors and researchers here today in all their forms, giving up a Saturday and being so committed to the cause.
I think it's exciting to see how we each are collaborating, right, and working to our strengths and working together to find treatments, but to also provide services and support. So then we can, I can really sense that passion in the room. So that's been really exciting for me. Thank you.
This is a little random, but I was really excited to know that there's little retinas being grown. I just thought that was wonderful. And I have this picture in my head of what they look like.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for the panel.